Thank you for being here. I'm Melissa. I think the reason why most of you are here, because the topic would be of interest to you, that every marketer is trying to make the dollar work harder for them, right? So that's why I hope that today my session would be able to share our insights and also some case studies to you to help you evoke some thoughts on how to better spend your marketing dollar. So firstly, sorry. Just make sure that I can see the audience. This side of the stage is really wide. So before we can actually look at how we can spend our marketing dollar efficiently, right, we would have to tackle the problems and the challenges that we have as marketers. So there are a lot of challenges as today's marketers would have to face. And I personally sit on the steering committee of the Marketing Society, and I think some of my members are here as well. And I think this is a topic that we constantly debate and discuss about because it is really very challenging to be a marketer today. There's like so many different stuff that we need to take care of. And to identify the problems, then we can give a solution to how to actually do it better. And there are a few challenges that I've picked out today. And the first, I think this is pretty common, especially for a lot of you if you're working for global regional brands. It's something that you constantly debate with your global teams, or if you're in a regional role with your local teams, right? That at what point should you be standardizing your work, and at what point should you be localizing it, to make sure that the local audiences resonates with it. I think there are no right and wrong, but it depends on what you're trying to achieve as well for every campaign or every communication material. There is also a big search of different kind of communication channels these days. I think it's very complex for us, especially in the Asia-Pacific market, right? That every market is different. Like, we always joke about when our global counterparts ask me, also, how's the weather in Asia? I'm like, there is no weather in Asia. Every market is very different. Australia may be winter now, and Japan it's like in summer kind of thing. So Asia is so complex, right? So we need to be able to fit what we need for every different market. And being a regional marketer, it would be very challenging. And I personally believe there's no one size fits all. Another challenge that we hear a lot as well is on data. I think just now, earlier session, those who were here earlier, I guess there was a big discussion as well, sharing about data. And that's something that marketers today talk a lot about. Data is good, and technology definitely helps with the marketer's job as well. But sometimes maybe too much data is also complex because the advertising and all the marketing process is already quite complicated sometimes. So now with more data, looking at it, you're like, oh, should I do this? Should I do that? Is it right? Is it wrong? I guess that is how, as marketers, these are stuff that you need to look at today. And what is the right fit? And are you using the data correctly as well? So this would be something that perhaps keeps you awake at night. And everything that we want today is like, I need it yesterday. Right? So we need to be agile, we need to be flexible. We need to make sure that we are able to deliver our communication advertising materials on time, speaking to the right audience as well. And there are also problems. Sometimes I hear of marketers or my clients, it's like, can you give this to me like a few months in advance? I'm like, why? It may not be relevant a few months later, but it's because they have a very complicated internal approval process, and that is also a technique on how to manage internal stakeholders, and also many agencies, many partners, complex internal structures. So this would be something that would also be a challenge to marketers these days. Lack of transparency, especially for most of you in senior marketing roles here, that you have big teams that you need to manage, multiple markets that you need to manage. This is something that you would struggle once in a while because you need to know what your local teams are doing, and also you need to ensure that the dollar that you're spending gives you back the ROI that is needed. And also that whether in terms of the matrix, today you're measuring from this way, the next day you're measuring like that, because you're just trying different ways. You're not sure yourself as well, like, am I measuring it correctly? Like this morning, I was also quite shocked when I hear, on the panel that they said that, oh, we shouldn't be measuring impressions anymore these days. That's something good to hear as well, but, it used to be measuring impressions previously, but today, no, you don't measure by impressions anymore. So there are also these challenges on silos. Just now the speaker mentioned about having 9 agencies, but are they really collaborating? I think that's something that marketers would struggle to manage as well. Talent. Talent has been debated so much lately these 2 years because I think as traditional marketers, or maybe during my time, I think marketing, advertising was simpler. There was print, there was broadcast, radio, kind of thing. But today with all the explosion of all the new media, your talent requirements is also higher, that you need people more specialized. You need people with more specialized skill set, right? That whether you need them creative, you need them from a product perspective, you need them from a sector perspective, you need them to have analytical skills. If there is such a person, then congratulations. But even if you found them, would you be able to actually retain them or also to nurture them further? Because I think a lot of times what I'm hearing is that a lot of marketing people are made to do a lot of execution work. And so after a while, they'll be like, it's not challenging enough, they want to move on, stuff like that. So that would be a challenge for people managers. And at what point should you be hiring people in-house? At what point should you be looking for a partner outside to actually outsource such work to? So this would be something that's challenging as well for you to make the decision on. And last but not least, I think innovation as marketers definitely, every day you're thinking of how to be the market leader, how to be the game changer. What can I do, to attract audiences? What can I do to actually be the first in the market to do it, right? Of course, every sector, every product, every company is different, but you would be thinking of this, and that is why your existence as well as marketers. So I hope that these few challenges resonates with you. Can I just have a show of hands? At least one of them resonates with you as a marketer? Great, thank you. Okay, thank God it's on topic. And with these challenges, so how are brands actually doing it? I think this is what you are interested in, that you know that these are the challenges, but is there an answer to it? Of course, I wouldn't say that there is one answer and it's not everybody with the best marketer on earth. But today's session is more on sharing on some of the brands that our clients as well, and that how they actually do it, on looking at some efficiencies in the marketing teams. So some clients, the names are masked out, but I guess you can guess who they are. So the first one that I would like to share is actually on PwC. So it's more on a B2B business, but 3 years ago, they were looking at how to transform from print to digital. And I think that we may think, maybe in this room, we may think that it's actually very simple. Just change that from print to digital. But actually, for a company to go through such change management, it's actually quite challenging because you need to make sure that all your stakeholders are on board and that people are supporting this topic. And also that you would be dedicating the correct time and effort to it, and to make sure that this would be successful and can be sustained. From PwC's perspective at that time, 3 years ago, their challenge was these few challenges. And I think that what was the most challenging to them was from a transparency perspective, because they were printing their traditional publication for years. It's normal, they've been doing that, and they're a pretty traditional company as well. And they have been doing that for a long time, but they did not know how many people was actually reading the publication. They spent so much money producing the content and printing them out. So they needed to know, so they had to transform. So they need to go from a print version to a digital version. And how they actually do it is it's in this video, which I'll let them talk about it.
Thought leadership publication, all about industry trends in the entertainment and media landscape. Historically, it has been a printed publication read by leaders in the field and reported on by the mainstream media. The challenge Williams Leetag was engaged to meet was how to successfully transform the printed publication into digital content. How to sustain and build audience engagement in a digital world, and how the digitisation of content can be monetised and usage analysed for strategic benefit. The solution. Williams Leetag designed and built an e-commerce website that enabled users to access content in a variety of ways. Depending on their needs, users can subscribe to the whole publication or just to specific chapters that are of particular relevance to them, and they can engage with the content online. Williams Leetag brought the content to life by creating an intuitive and engaging user interface, producing and embedding streaming video, and designing and building interactive graphics. Williams Leetag built the site ensuring compliance to PwC's IT policies and technical infrastructure, having the ability to make changes and ongoing updates easily and efficiently, and making the site responsive to all browsers and all devices, mobiles, tablets and desktops. Williams Leetag gave the site strategic value by ensuring the site provided user analytics for tracking how many people use the site, understanding how users interact with the site and its content, and identifying content that resonates with users. The results. The site has been running successfully since 2014. It has proven its success with a 70% net saving on print spend annually, reduction in PwC's carbon footprint, increase in audience by 250%, access to user analytics that provides the direction of future content to further engage readers, providing business leads, building the PwC brand, and creating market cut-through by showcasing real-life digital transformation.
Yep, so this is the example of how PwC actually moved from a print version to a digital version, and you would see that there are many efficiencies around this. And I think that most importantly for them, besides the 70% savings from a print to digital, there would be other kind of benefits to them, whereby there were more than 250% of people that were reading their publications. Like I said previously, they were not sure how many people that actually took the book actually read them, but we are counting it by how many copies were actually printed, and then after that, finally, from a digital traffic perspective, how many people actually subscribe to the site. So this was a very successful transformation for PwC, and of course, what you saw in the video earlier, that was an earlier site. And today in 2017, of course, the site has already evolved, looking more advanced, putting in different technologies as well, and also evolving to what they require and the kind of data that they need to achieve and to keep track of. So with that, I think that the teams are very happy because at least they're spending time on the correct leads that they're going after, and it's not everyone is a final customer, it's not everyone is a final person that would help you in your numbers or in your spending your marketing time on. So through user analytics, right, you'll be able to find better leads on there. The next case study that I'm going to share is on a leading global beverage company. So this case is very different from PwC. What they needed was actually very clearly, the brand know that they needed a digital asset management platform. The reason being is they believe a lot still in creativity. They still believe a lot in creating local messages for local audiences. They wanted to go with a very decentralized advertising creative production model. But at the same time, they knew that a lot of things need not be recreated from scratch, which means that are there some things that actually you can reuse them? Can I not always be, let's say if it's a TVC, do I really need to shoot the whole 60 seconds TVC from scratch to end? Is there some frames that I can reuse? Or if it's a product shot, how different was your product shot 6 months ago from your product today, right? Is there some things that I could actually save a bit of money on? So they were very clear that they needed a one digital platform whereby they could access and get everything from. So that is why, they looked into having a platform whereby all the marketing teams and all the agencies and partners could get onto. And of course, it needs to be properly managed. And the challenge at that point of time, definitely the first one was very important for them, standardization versus localization, right? Like, as I mentioned, they still believe in localizing messages to their local audience, but at some point, there should also be some kind of standardization whereby you can use some of the global assets, or you can use some of the regional assets, or, for example, whatever that's created in Malaysia, can you share it and use it in Indonesia? For example, just make some tweaks to it, and then you would be able to get some cost savings. So with that, that platform was actually set up and managed, and it's not it's not just setting up a platform. You need to make sure that you're also running it and supporting the local users on using the platform. And it was very clear that, just with 1% usage, asset reuse, right, the company actually saved more than $1 million US. So as years goes by, when you have more and more content in your asset platform, and you have more and more users using it, this percentage would go up more. But of course, it's, again, we're saying that it's not limiting creativity, but it's just looking for the correct the correct asset to be reused. And so that would be this $1 million, what can it be used for? It can go back to your bottom line. It can be used to create another creative campaign. It can be used to do more innovative stuff, but that's the way that you could create some efficiency in your marketing dollars in doing that. And it's not, like I mentioned, it's not just creating a platform and not giving the support, right? You would need professional, dedicated people to help to make sure that this is a successful rollout, that all your users are also convinced, that this is the way to do things. The asset library can only be successful if there are more contents going in. So with this, there was a global collaboration of more than 70,000 staff, employees, mostly from the marketing teams, that needed to know how to use this platform, and also to get the agencies involved, whereby every time they finish a piece of work, an asset, whether it's a television commercial, whether it's a digital banner, whether it's a print ad, then you actually put it up here. So the more content you have, the more choices you have moving forward in order to reuse them. So with this, the savings that you can see are both in terms of hard and soft savings, right? In soft savings per se, you would get time back for your marketers, whereby they don't have to create new things over and over again, right? And also from a hard savings perspective, like you have seen, 1% reuse is $1 million that can go back into your marketing spend. So this is how asset reuse could help this company save on more of their marketing dollars. The next one that I'm going to share, it's more on a FMCG brand. So this FMCG brand is looking at optimizing their process. I think a lot of times as marketers, maybe sometimes we undermine how streamlining process can actually help us in our daily work, or sometimes we feel that, oh, it's done this way, why do we have to change the way that it's being done? But actually, if you let outsiders or professionals, I would say, someone who is more objective to come and look at the process, you would see that actually there could be some efficiencies that could help you in your daily work, that would help you make your life easier as well. And you'll be surprised that some of them translate back into savings, and some of them translate back into time and money efficiencies for you as marketers. So this FMCG client, I think most important to them, these challenges that they were facing, most important to them was actually speed and agility to the market. FMCG, right? Fast-moving consumer goods. So they need to be quick, they need to be fast. So this is what
our client is a leading consumer products company selling over 65 iconic brands in retail stores around the world. They have a long-standing history of consumer innovation and were the first consumer products company to sell direct to retailers. They rely on point-of-sale materials such as product displays and promotional items to help influence purchasing decisions. Effective point-of-sale grabs shoppers' attention at the first moment of truth and influences buying decisions. Providing point-of-sale materials for our client was costly and complex, They relied on multiple agencies for creative and different manufacturers for delivery. Additionally, the process was different in each region and country. Agencies interpreted brand assets differently, impacting compliance and creating an inconsistent experience for shoppers. Disconnected process management led to duplicated effort and little visibility or control over the cost of materials production.
Yep, so just by looking at their process and streamlining it, right, they could actually bring themselves more than 5.6 million savings across different multiple markets. And at the same time, they would also had a lead time reduction of 30% because previously, I think maybe the marketers were just trying to work with a vendor in that market. You know, they may be sitting somewhere else and they had to do it all on their own while a lot of other campaign stuff was still going on. But when you specialize it into a work stream, it brings about more lead time reduction as well. And of course, there would be brand consistency because you're not using various small agencies everywhere, or you're using, some clients even use, like this client, even use printers then to be doing some of their communication materials. I mean, if you are such a prestigious brand, you know, your brand compliance, your brand equity should be very important, right? So you need to make sure that that is also taken care of. Then with that time, you know, you can go back to innovation where you can think of better ideas on how to save costs or how to break through the clutter or to, you know, attract more audiences. And a lot of times, who says that point of sale materials is only paper? It's only cardboard, right? There can be times where you can put in technology, you know, you can put in eyeball tracking, you know, to help you to look at how effective your point of sale materials are as well. So, if you have spent less time on the execution and, you know, worrying about the logistics of things and stuff like that, you would have more time to think about innovation. As well as for transparency and standardization. As much as we believe that, you know, every item should be customized, you know, every item should be talking to a local audience, every item should be talking to that store, that market, but we cannot deny that there are some items that can be standardized from a printing perspective as well. For example, if we are saying an A4 leaflet, if you're printing an A4 leaflet every week, right, why do you have to keep briefing your printer over and over again, right? It should be standardized. And also you could have maybe self-service portals, or you can have, you know, e-catalogs that you could work with. So these are stuff that this brand worked together to actually try to bring more efficiencies as well. And lastly, the compliance people are happy as well because you ensure that all the different markets that you are going into, you know, you are managing the compliance of every country, you know, you are making sure that you don't have problems with the tax authorities, warehousing and stuff like that as well because you're doing it over and over again with the same partner. Yep. So the next one that I'm going to share would be a pharmaceutical brand. I think there are some pharma brands around here today. I've met a couple. And I think this is a very highly regulated market. And so marketing sometimes would be quite challenging in that market, in this sector. And the challenges that this brand actually had, you know, are quite pretty similar to the rest of the brands, but one very unique one was on talent, that the brand had a lot of problems managing and retaining talent because we know that from a pharmaceutical perspective, a lot of you are hired, you know, because of your sector specialism, right? That it's not just anybody can be a pharma kind of marketer. You need to know your products, you need to know the market. So, but at the same time, a lot of the marketers were very busy doing the execution work. I think with my own experience from agencies and from brand companies, I think pharmaceutical clients ones with the most number of rounds of changes on their advertising material. On their, I saw somebody laughing at you from one of the brands. It can go up like a simple label on a maybe on a external product, right? Can go up to like 200 rounds of changes just because compliance or legal kept saying. Sorry, the team that is keep laughing. I think you're resonating with what I'm saying, but yeah, it can go up to 200-300 rounds of changes, and it takes like, I don't know, 3 to 4 months because legal here say cannot, doctor there say cannot, and that kind of thing. So they had a lot of problems really retaining the talent that they have, and they really wanted to take away the execution work from their marketing teams and let them concentrate more on what they're good at doing.
Our client provides
So this
medicine
is
to patients around
what
the
they did.
world and is committed to integrity at every point in a product's life cycle. It's vital that their marketing supply chain follows product and brand guidelines, meets regulations, and helps our clients' field sales force succeed. To ensure connected campaigns are delivered quickly and cost efficiently, our client decoupled agency work from execution of marketing materials in local markets. A centralized marketing hub facilitates channel strategy management and coordinates activities for marketing campaigns. With multiple agencies creating materials, maintaining global consistency and adapting marketing assets was a struggle. Global marketing teams had limited visibility and control over local market activities and costs. They needed to drive efficiencies in all markets, large and small. Each campaign needs project management to coordinate client and agency teams, produce components of the product launch, and quickly move them through our client's complex promotional review process.
Yep, so this pharma client, the reason why they have chosen to go with a very centralized approach is because of a lot of regulations and a lot of compliance concerns that they have. So, but sometimes when you hear the word centralized, you get very worried that it's become very slow, kind of thing. But once you actually consolidate it and make sure that you have people that's dedicated and full-time looking into it and are specialized in that field, I think it will just get better and better. And as of today, this client has this centralized approach whereby they do both creative production. When we say creative production, we're talking about the execution part of things. You would still have your main agency thinking of the branding and the positioning. So the execution part of things and also the print management, which what we call the sourcing part of it, they were able to have about 20% cost savings. And also that they actually had more than $35 million of savings in execution of the creative work over 5 years. Yeah, this is not 1 year. Yeah, over 5 years, rather than using silo agencies in every single market, they did get this saving. And most important to them is also that it did not compromise the speed to market, although it's in a centralized model, that they were still able to deliver what is needed to them quickly and on time. So this is an example of how this client actually managed marketing efficiency and still being able to deliver consistency and accessibility to the marketers and also to their end consumers. Yep, so now the last case study, I still have 15 minutes, that I'm going to go through is actually another FMCG company. This would be Unilever. Anyone from Unilever here? No. Okay, so Unilever, I think it's a brand that we're all very familiar with, and I think that just now also mentioned about identity of Dove and stuff like that. So that was already being discussed. But Unilever, you know that they have many products under them, and many different marketing teams working with under the regional and global teams as well. It is really difficult to manage from a global perspective. From a regional perspective, there was also no transparency. So they were one of the most early adopters of a more centralized approach and also of a more sophisticated digital asset management tool. As early as 10, 11 years ago, they have already started. So today it's working very efficiently, of course, with improvements and involvements along the way. So these were the challenges that they had more than 10 years ago, that they already foresee that they had to be very clear on how they wanted to use technology and data. They needed the global and regional teams to have more visibility on what local markets are doing, but at the same time not hindering the local markets, still extending their creativity, still doing stuff that speaks to the local audience, but they needed to know more. So they would have this digital platform, and as much as work is possible that it can be brought through a centralized process team. But of course, if you need to create locally, then if it cannot be used, you cannot adapt a material, you cannot reuse a material, then it goes to agreement for origination, what we call, or that you can create a new campaign from scratch. Because I'm sure you have read a lot in the media lately as well that they're really looking at cutting down their marketing spend, and they would have the zero-based marketing that every dollar that the marketers spend, they need to justify for it. So it goes through the process whereby first you have to check whether there's any assets that you can reuse, any assets that you can adapt from. If no, what's the reason? Then you will put in a proposal for why you need to create new, and then you get your approval to go ahead. So this is not new to them because they've already started long ago. It's just that they're modifying to what their needs are these days. So this is how they have evolved over the last 10 years.
Your legs right in.
We voedsel niet te flink.
Kriepse, wikse, kriepse, wikse.
Piel oculta ya.
Je huid is droog en droevig, je smaan en wereld.
Tocos protestará.
Shaw asked women to use these jingle bells during one entire day.
Kako bi čule svaki pokret koji naprave.
Štai kodėl Rexona sukūrė naują Motion Sense technologiją.
Hoe meer je beweegt, hoe beter het werkt. Rexona, daar kun je op vertrouwen.
Yep, the video goes on and on and on until 2017, so just cut it off here. So, but I mean, you get the idea of how Unilever actually worked their creative production model. But this did not hinder them from still producing a lot of great work in local markets, a lot of great branding, thematic kind of advertisements or viral videos that's still going on. It does not hinder them, but it's just that for a more tactical product perspective, could you really adapt? And the assets are all readily available there. It's easy for you to look for them, and there are people who understands the work that you can straight away go to. And with this, as compared to using various local agencies, all different markets, and creating things from scratch every time, it was able to deliver them more than 50% cost savings. And I think that they're driving this more and more in today's climate as well. Sorry. And most importantly is that although you're speaking to the local markets, they're still upholding the brand integrity and the brand equity. So there's still brand consistency in a lot of piece of work that, as you can see earlier, but it's still talking to the local audience. The products are still relevant. The copy, the messaging is still relevant to the consumers that you're talking to. So with this, the global teams, the regional teams are happy because they are able to know where the local dollars are being spent. And also, I think it's more on, it's easier to justify, right? That if I spend $1 million creating this campaign, I spend another $1 million using a celebrity endorsement, right? How many markets actually use it? So if you need to do bigger campaigns, you need to spend money on bigger kind of celebrity or doing shoots elsewhere kind of thing. You also need to ensure that your markets are using it and not creating it once and only using it in one market. So with digital asset management tool, with a centralized execution team, you'll be able to have more transparency that how these assets are being reused and over again. So that would also bring about a lot of efficiency and effectiveness in the marketing teams. So all these, that we have seen for Unilever, they call it UniAdapt. So whenever they say that, can we just check whether we can UniAdapt it first before we create a new asset? Because it's such a common term that they use in their marketing teams already. UniAdapt it means that can I find a way to adapt it before I decide, to ask for money to go and create something new. So that is how the system works, the model works for them in Unilever globally. Yep, so that is basically the 5 different case studies that I've prepared today. I hope that it has helped to evoke some thoughts, and maybe some learnings that you can think about on how to actually manage your marketing streams and also working your dollar harder. And especially for you, those who are working across different markets, that these case studies will actually help you to actually think about how to overcome some of these challenges that we have spoken about in the beginning. Yeah, I'm done for now, but I think that Alex is happy to come on and take some questions. Yeah. Thank you.
Yeah, we do just have a few minutes left here. I'm sure there are people with a few questions about some of the sort of intricacies of what was talked about there. Maybe we'll start with that last sort of case study. It was very interesting, I think, and there's probably a lot of people in the room here today who are marketers who are with big brands, but obviously probably not the size of Unilever because there are very few people the size of Unilever out there. I guess the question, for me is, how does a brand know when it is right to uni-adapt something in a market versus actually create sort of bespoke content for that market, and for someone like Unilever, how are they doing any sort of A/B testing in market to see whether occasionally a Dove ad created specifically for that market will work better than the global creative? Yeah.
I think that's a good question because, what we see here on this Unilever case study, for example, it's only towards the end, whereby the execution is. In the beginning, when they're trying to position a product or trying to sell a product in a market or relaunch a product, right, they would have done all their research and local kind of understanding of what the market requires, how to reach the local audience. So with those reports, then they would also come together as marketing teams to actually brainstorm and think about, whether they really want to spend their money to do this. And then they would also hire in the different experts from your branding agencies, from your creative agency to come in and look at it. And then they will also still do the budgeting to see that whether it is worth doing it or would they have the money to do it. And if the answer is no, right, then they'll be like, oh, but I can't not do anything, right? Then I would also think about UniAdapt. But sometimes when it's so straightforward, they would say that it's just UniAdapt first. Then if UniAdapt, you cannot find anything, then we would bring in the creative guys to come and create something new.
And that's when the agency gets that part of the brief, obviously. I'm going to throw to the audience. There's a gentleman at the front here with a question. Just wait for the microphone. It's winging its way from the back, so just one moment. Should hum or something or do a little dance to keep you entertained, but that would just be embarrassing for everyone. Yeah, that's all right. It's for the tape as well.
Oh, he's asking me. I wanted to ask you a question during your session, but it was a great session anyway.
Thank you. No, I'm just wondering, do you have any general thoughts on culture and the role that culture plays in whether you should fast adapt, and are there particular categories that are more centralizable than other categories?
Yeah, thank you so much. I think that is also an area that you're very familiar with. And I think that for me, culture is definitely, and for our organization, culture is definitely something that we take very seriously, and it's very important for us. That's why for us, not saying the company, but we do have all our copywriters that lives in the market, because they will be the ones acting as consultants for us to make sure that we are not just directly adapting something because it wouldn't work for that market. And many a times for market which are more sensitive, and for example, China, it's very different market. Very seldom we could adapt something for China. We would be creating something for China, but you could be using a certain element of certain assets that you have to just put it together, just to make sure that it's still saying the same message and still consistent. So that is, from a China perspective, that would be it. But from a maybe more developed market, maybe Singapore, Hong Kong, a lot of times the culture nuances are not so much. It can still be a lot of adaptation that's going on just to make sure that the language is correct and it's something that people can resonate to. So it's definitely something that we take very seriously as well. Thank you.
Okay, got another question from the floor. We've got another couple of moments if anyone has something. No? You talked sort of talent there, obviously, and that's a big issue, I guess, for a lot of people, and a lot of big brands and marketers, and sort of keeping them doing a job I think they'd like to do, and that sort of centralization piece. I mean, are there things that smaller brands here can probably be thinking about to take some of that more administrative stuff off of people's plates?
Sure, of course. Yeah, I think that technology is one thing that, as in we spoke a lot about technology over, today, the whole day. And it's not only big brands that can make use of technology to help you. Technology is there to make your life easier. Sometimes I get surprised. I mean, I've been in this industry 15 years, but sometimes I get surprised that a lot of times the clients or the marketers don't know where their asset is. Like, as in, I need that poster from the last roadshow. Then I'll be like, okay, where is the poster? They'll be like, I don't know. It could be on that person who has resigned or in that particular laptop or something like that. It's so like, okay, then you spend like a week trying to track down something. So I think that technology is something that every marketer needs to make use of it to help you in your daily work. You don't need to spend, tens of thousands to create a super humongous kind of technology platform, but something very simple. Maybe the simplest function where you can actually store stuff, and even when people leave, people change roles, you're still able to find your stuff. So I think that technology would be one thing that I would recommend marketers to actually invest a bit in, that could actually help and make your life much easier.
I mean, some of this seems like quite sort of straightforward stuff that people should already be implementing. What do you think the barriers are stopping people from doing it?
I think definitely it's about your day-to-day stuff, right? Like, as in, you would have every day your 8 hours is really not enough. You're going home and still opening your laptop, still doing stuff. It's very operational, and you're doing a lot of execution stuff, and that's why it hinders you from thinking of actually bigger things which are actually simpler. Or maybe sometimes it's also in certain organizations, you'll be, as marketer, you'll be thinking that is actually the CIO's job. It's actually the IT person's job. It's actually procurement's job to find me a better supplier. Or, it's something like that, like, as in, you feel that it's somebody else's job because you are already very busy with your daily work. So that's why, you never really push that through. But I'm sure that if you believe in it and you really, really want it to help you and your teams, a simple proposal or working with your preferred partner that that's in the market would actually help.
Do you have any other questions from the floor? Don't be shy, guys. No? And are there any tips then you've got, sort of picking up on that point around that collaboration piece in, for marketers with, other people within the company? You talked about data there, and obviously a lot of the time data doesn't necessarily sit with the marketing team where maybe it should. So, are there things that they can start to use or ways they can start to use to sort of liberate some of that data?
I think every organization would be different. Like for us, like, how I actually did this presentation is that it's not there is a solution, right? I mean, not there's something that we're selling or there's a solution. We need to know what is the problem first, what is the challenges first, where is your pain point, where you hope it can be done better. Then, you would craft a solution to actually help tackle that problem. Yeah.
We are running out of time quite rapidly here, so I'm going to wrap things up for this session. But before I ask you to thank Melissa for sharing those insights, a quick reminder that at 4 o'clock on this stage we'll have Dave McCorgan, who's Chief Strategy Officer for the AI Agency. He'll be moderating a panel discussion titled Ageism in Advertising, Overcoming the Myths. Quite an interesting topic to discuss, I think. And for other sessions obviously taking place, please do consult your program and your app and so on. It's all on there in real time. Afternoon tea is also now available just in the exhibition area over there, so please do go help yourself to refreshments for a few minutes, but be back in the rooms for 4 o'clock for a nice prompt start. In the meantime, please join me in thanking Melissa Chan.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you so much.